Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our June 14th Seac meeting for the Halton Catholic District School Board. Just a reminder that tonight's meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be posted on the board's YouTube channel later. My name is Maria Lorenko. I'm the vice chair for Seac, and I'm filling in for our chair who was not able to attend this evening. I'd like to introduce and welcome our two new members of Seac, both representing Autism Ontario, and I'm gonna hope I pronounce their names right. So Lizel Rojas Silva and Lisa Anderson. Welcome to our committee. We're happy to have you here. I'm gonna start the meeting. Very welcome. I'm going to start the meeting with the opening prayer. So if you could please join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We come together in hope from different community groups, answering the same call to service, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in gratitude for the trust placed in us, for the opportunity to serve, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in respect, aware of our diversity, willing to work for the good, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in awe of the wonder and beauty of each of God's children, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in God's name. And as we work together toward the same goal, each piece of the puzzle begins to fit neatly into place, creating a breathtaking picture of love, compassion, courage, and grace. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And Andrea, if you can play the land acknowledgement, I see you've got it all ready to go. Thank you.
Each of us has a relationship to the natural environment, the land, water, earth, the habitat, and ecosystems. Land acknowledgements provide us with an opportunity to offer recognition, respect to the original inhabitants of the regions that we live in and work on. There are many things that we can do to go beyond simply reading a land acknowledgement script. To make it more meaningful, we need to consider that we are, in fact, acknowledging not only the ancestral lands, but also the historical and complex intersections of settler impacts on Indigenous histories, economies, ecologies, livelihood, well-being, and governance structures. A territorial acknowledgement is not an endpoint in the journey of reconciliation. Actions create conditions for true reconciliation and create a foundation for restoring, renewing, or developing a new relationship with Indigenous peoples. For hundreds of years, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Attawaddaron, the Potawatomi, the Wendat, and Lenape nations have sought to walk gently on this land. They assisted the first European travelers to this territory and shared their knowledge for survival in what was, at times, a harsh climate. Under consultations from elders, knowledge holders from the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and 6 nations of the Grand River Territory, the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee, along with Halton Catholic District School Board, created this land acknowledgement.
Halton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis.
From the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawaddaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lake
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today
on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect
the 4 directions: lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors that walked before us.
All of these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God. We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for being stewards of this traditional territory.
Thank you, Andrea. And it looks, I don't know if I've seen the translations on there before, so that's great. Next item is the approval of the agenda, and there is one change. Director Daly is running a little bit late, so he's asked to have that presentation moved to after the STEM presentation. So with that being said, can I have a mover to approve the agenda, please?
It's Paul, I'll move.
Thank you, Paul. Can I have a seconder?
Rhonda here, I'll second.
Thank you, Rhonda. And is there any objections, I guess, to the approval of the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. And I will turn it over to Superintendent Crowell, who is going to share with us some information about the STEM initiatives at the board.
Good evening, Seac Committee. My name is Jeff Crowell. I'm the Superintendent of Curriculum. Just going to take a minute and share my screen here, and we'll get started with our presentation. Right. So thanks very much for having us. I do have some friends here with me tonight. So joining me is Patrick Brophy, who's currently the Vice Principal at Corpus Christi, Chris Kalischik, who's currently the Vice Principal at Assumption Secondary, and Kevin Wong, who's the Principal for our new Milton 3 High School, so St. Kateri. They're going to be joining me in the presentation tonight. So this came from a presentation that we did at the board meeting a few weeks ago. And one of the suggestions from the Board of Trustees would it be great to bring Seac up to speed on kind of the work that we've undertaken over the last, well, just over a year. So wanted to certainly very happy to come and present and share with you tonight. So back in June 2020, there was a motion to strike a STEM steering committee that actually came from Trustee Duarte, who I know is an important member of this committee as well. So since October 2020, we've had a number of different members of both teaching staff, administrators, curriculum staff, our elementary secondary OECTA, and we've even had a staff representative from Master University that has been joining us in the work. So some of the work that we've done has been looking to see what programs and initiatives we have currently that are STEM related in Halton Catholic, looking at what other programs, resources, and initiatives there are across our system, and also looking at what other school districts have too, as well as higher education and government resources to help generate a STEM strategy. One of the suggestions that came from the group was that it is important that we have a vision statement. So I'm going to just go through quickly the vision statement, and then I'm going to turn it over to the team. They'll kind of unpack a little bit more as to why we believe these statements are important. So as a STEM steering committee, we believe, and we're going to start talking about STEAM now instead of STEM, and again, we'll explain that in a second. So we believe there are already excellent STEAM initiatives and programs in the Halton Catholic District School Board that provide a strong foundation for the strategy. We believe that STEAM education can be successfully implemented across our system and across all subjects. We believe that we can increase engagement in STEAM for all students. Strong connections between our existing curriculum, the Ontario Catholic School graduate expectations, and STEAM education. And finally, we believe this work requires dedicated staff, professional development, and resources to ensure its success. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick Brophy, who's going to talk us through the next few slides.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, and thank you, everyone. Like Jeff said, I'm Pat Brophy, VP over at Corpus, and I'm going to be talking about the overarching philosophies for this STEAM initiative and kind of the guiding principles that we're working with. So the first thing is unpacking STEM versus STEAM. I'm sure many of you have heard the term STEM before, and that acronym is for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that actually, the origin for that comes back from about the middle of the 1990s in the United States. And that was an education policy where they were trying to really drive home that we needed to focus more on the disciplines of STEM so that students were ready to take on whatever challenges were in the modern knowledge economy and transforming the world around them. So that's kind of where it started. However, about 15 years thereafter, we're now at 2010, a lot of rebranding started to happen because a lot of people in industry were saying that we were preparing students with, yes, strong skills in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but they were missing in components of creativity, innovation, and curiosity. And really what was missing was the A, or the arts. So it was rebranded as STEAM, yeah, so it was rebranded as STEAM, and I think that as we've continued to navigate this pandemic, you can even see that there's value in transitioning from kind of like a STEM look and where we're preparing students into STEAM, because although science, technology, education, or engineering and mathematics all are vitally important to solving COVID-19, understanding humanity and understanding that there's a complex human problem at the heart of this that we have to work through, that's where the arts come in and that's where the humanities come in. Okay, so Jeff, if you just want to move forward. Okay, so I think that STEAM is even more appealing for the work we do as a Catholic institution, because we're called to evangelize those in our school and fan those embers of faith within the schools and those who we serve. And STEAM initiatives invite us to consider social justice, our Catholic graduate expectations, and scripture as it relates to all those fields that I spoke of. I encourage anyone who's interested in kind of seeing that a correlation or connection between STEAM and 21st century competencies, which are very much rooted at the work of STEAM, and our Catholic graduate expectations, to check out a monograph that was put out by ICE, so the Institute for Catholic Education, and that was called Curriculum for the Heart of Young People. And throughout the monograph series, what it does is that it breaks down a Catholic graduate expectation and shows how it has kind of like this 21st century lens to it, so that there is obvious connections there. So I encourage you to do that. So with intention, the work that we're charting across the district in the realm of STEAM is very much also the work rooted in joyful discipleship, growing and living out our Catholic graduate expectations. In addition, though, the curriculum, so we know that a new math curriculum had been released to elementary last year, and that just recently for de-streamed grade 9 math has been released as well. And we are seeing that there are a lot of STEAM principles that are found within those two curriculum documents. And specifically, those could be critical thinking, inquiry, coding, real world applications, and that as new curriculums continue to roll out from the ministry, we're probably going to see more STEAM initiatives that are integrated in. So it's good to be ahead of it, and that's what the work we're doing here is. Okay, so increasing connections to STEAM in all subjects. So a key idea here, if there's one thing you're going to take away from this bullet here, is that all teachers are STEAM teachers and all students are STEAM learners. So it's important to note that the work of STEAM is already well underway, just like Jeff had said at the beginning, in both our elementary and secondary panels. And so in some respects, the work of the committee, all we're doing is we are trying to emphasize what's already happening and galvanize that and to grow it so that all learners can benefit from that. Okay, so I think if we can flip to the last slide there, Jeff, thank you. Okay, and then lastly, increasing engagement in STEAM for all. So, you know, one doesn't have to be strong in surveys or data to understand that there are groups of individuals within student populations that are underserved, and there's inequalities, and that is very much apparent in traditional STEM fields. So in one of our first meetings, Director Daly had asked the group, how does STEAM benefit all learners? How will the work of that committee, the committee that we're on, and the initiatives we put forth be beneficial to everyone in our classrooms? So one of the guiding philosophies is to leverage collection of data. So we look to collect data, perceptual and socioeconomic data, so that we can understand who are those that are still facing systemic barriers and then try to find ways to overcome it. So getting back to that galvanizing that I spoke to earlier, just trying to move it forward, that our initiatives continue to make new inroads for those that had traditionally not been served by STEM, and trying to grow that through STEAM. So those are the 4 overarching philosophies that are kind of guiding the work that we're doing. So I think it's over to Chris Kalischik and Kevin Wong.
Evening, everyone. So I'm going to talk briefly about our strategy from a system level point of view. These are the recommendations the committee has put forward to the board. The first is increasing the number of cross-panel initiatives that we have. Give you an example of one that we're currently under. Currently, there are secondary students from Assumption, Corpus Christi, and Bishop Redding that have gone to training at McMaster University in coding, and they have gone into some of our elementary schools in grades 6, 7, and 8, and they are doing some co-teaching with those elementary students in and around coding and the math curriculum. It was a good way for us as a system to connect directly to a university. It's a great experience for our secondary students, and the real benefit is to our elementary students who are learning from peers in regards to coding and getting excited around that. So one of the overall recommendations is that we find and explore more opportunities like that, and then broaden the ones that we're already involved in. Every secondary school already does cross-panel initiatives with their feeder system, and we're looking to make sure that we can root some of those in STEAM itself. The second thing is dedicated staff. We really believe that this work will take a dedicated staff or staff members at the board level in the curriculum department. Whether that is consultants or itinerants, they really need to be focused on how all of the great ideas that came out of this group or this team can be rolled out in a timely manner and with a very clear vision and goal to it. Which leads into dedicated project funding. Much of the stuff that we looked at doing does not have an overt cost. A lot of it is already happening within inside of our school system, but some of it will have costs, particularly around technology pieces, staying up to date, making sure that IT has the ability in order to support the pieces of technology that come into our system in order to meet these goals. So we need to have consistent dedicated funding to it, so we are aware of what's happening. So that could be technology, that could be for the staff members, and that also leads me into providing resources. Much of the resources we're looking at here are around professional development. So what are the ways that we can harness the knowledge that is already within our system and create good quality professional development for teachers that will lead directly into all areas of the curriculum. As we said earlier, all teachers are STEAM teachers and all students are STEAM learners. So we need to make sure that we are providing our staff with the correct resources to be able to roll out these initiatives in their day-to-day classrooms. We'd also like to continue the competition and contests and field trips that occur. There's a lot of great work already going on in the system, whether that's the math competitions that happen in secondary school with University of Waterloo, et cetera, whether that is our technology departments participating in Ontario Skills and Canada-wide. If you weren't aware or haven't seen recently, one of our secondary students at Holy Trinity won a gold medal. So that happens in every secondary school, and we're looking to promote that, have more participants in it, and find more success in those competitions and contests. And then the last bullet point, which is really important to us, is we talked at length about ensuring equitable access. We talked about this in many forms, whether this is making sure that it's available in all areas of the board, whether that's Georgetown, Milton, Burlington, or Oakville. We also looked at making sure that we are meeting the needs of our ELL and IEP students, and that we have access to all of these STEAM initiatives to all of our students. Mr. Brophy talked briefly about some of those systemic barriers as well that we need to look at once we get our hands on the data of how do we make sure that we are getting all students into it. Another area that this sort of plays into is increasing our involvement of females in some of these technological trades. Our data shows us that as of right now, we could use some increased engagement with our female students, and we think that it will benefit everybody if we do so. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, Kevin, you've got the next slide.
Yes, so good evening, everybody. One of the things that we are considering to do for dedicated STEAM spaces is it might be different for every school, but one common thing that all schools have is a Learning Commons, and that's a great resource for a place where students, can meet, whether it's on their lunch, after school, can even be, part of their class time as well too. But that every school can kind of decide something like that, and that's where the STEAM champion is going to be kind of important at the school level, because you do need an individual to kind of lead a lot of the initiatives that are happening at the school level. And we've already got a lot of that already in place, whether it's the teacher, whether it's the librarian, whether it's even some of our SHISM leads, and that's some of the programs we looked at down below. And that's kind of where, I want to kind of take a look at next. I'm going to hop to that last point. SHISMs, or Specialist High Skills Major Programs, are unique programs that already exist in all of our secondary schools. They cover pathways for university-bound, college-bound, and workplace-bound students. And there's a lot of interesting parts that come along with it in terms of learning activities, work experiences, such as co-op, as well as scholarship opportunities for both college students as well as university students, for students who have just finished the program, where these are automatic scholarships. And this kind of ties into kind of developing interdisciplinary learning at the secondary level. What was mentioned earlier is that all teachers are STEAM teachers. And it's important that, what we do is interwoven amongst all disciplines and all curriculum, because there's a place for all students to participate, whether their interest is directly related to engineering, whether their interest is related to arts, whether their interest is related to business or English. They're all parts and components that will help enhance STEAM initiatives as we move forward. So thank you very much, and I'll turn back over to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Kevin. The last piece we think is really important is, of course, professional development. So we're looking at a number of different opportunities for professional development for staff and better understanding how they can integrate STEM into their classroom. We're also looking at having some dedicated writing teams, so teams of HCDSB teachers. We may look also to get some experts from outside that can help in writing support documents that are HCDSB specific through summer work, through other work that will be able to support moving this initiative forward. And finally, we're looking to offer some additional qualification courses that are STEAM focused, written by our teachers for our teachers, so that they can get more training in the area of STEAM. Just gonna stop sharing for a second. I just have to share a different slide. It's just the way the presentation worked out. So just in terms of our timeline, so here's kind of where we're at right now. So we finished our sort of presentation to the Board of Trustees and presenting to you as well. We are sort of working our way still through the budget process. That's the final piece that we're waiting for this year. Once we get approval, hopefully through the budget process, we'll be posting and hiring for a STEAM consultant and hopefully some itinerant teachers that also will be able to do the work. Chris mentioned earlier the cross-panel initiatives that we're looking to do. So working in elementary and secondary schools, we'd like to start that work early in September, so September 2021. In the fall of 2021, we're going to be getting PD opportunities. We're going to be working with schools to further develop those STEAM spaces that Kevin spoke to. We'll also be doing a presentation to our Council of Chairs. Throughout the winter, we'd like to work on developing those additional qualification courses. We'll be reporting back to the Board of Trustees. We're envisioning in spring 2022, our first STEAM competitions will be taking place, we think locally and then across the system. That curriculum writing that we talked about earlier on, that'll happen in the summer of 2022. And then in the fall of 2022, we'll look to have a STEAM champion at each school. And then we'll have a further report to the Board of Trustees, and then in winter 2022, we'll revisit this plan to make refinements and set further direction. So at this point, just want to acknowledge, sorry, I'm gonna have to, thanks for your patience as I kind of move back and forth between the two of these. Acknowledge that the work of a lot of people went into being able to provide this report to the board and these recommendations. And at this point, we're really just going to sort of open it up for questions and discussion. Be interested to hear what you kind of think about this initiative and where we might be going next.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and everyone else who came out to join us this evening and share the presentation. Just wondering if anyone has any questions or even comments. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box so far, but please, if anyone has any questions or comments.
Maria, I do. I don't know if you can see my hand up. Sorry.
I don't. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's Nancy. Thank you again for the wonderful presentation. And I'm going to sound like a bit of a broken record, Jeff, but you know my question's going to be. So what have we done since the last board meeting and presentation to ensure that there's going to be a spec ed lens that is going to be incorporated in this immediately?
I think Stephanie's going to speak.
I will do that. We have added 2 itinerants to the committee that Jeff has. We have Fiona Lanuti and Carmela Merla. They're both on the call actually this evening, so they can hear the presentation firsthand. They do have all of the materials and they'll be included in all of the training that takes place. And then Jody, of course, will be supporting both of our itinerant certs with that PD. And the intent would be that they'll be able to communicate with all of the schools, both at elementary and secondary, through our family of schools model. And that's our plan at this point. And as you can see through the timeline, it's quite extensive. So we'll also bring additional staff in if that's needed as we move along.
Can I just follow up with a question, Maria, if that's okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so that's great. I'm glad to hear. So does that mean then that they'll be caught up? So when we look at starting the implementation and the PDs come September, that they'll be part of that and I guess been brought up to speed so that we here as well at Seac know what's happening and what we can expect. So when we are talking to any of our parents in our communities or broader communities, we have an idea of what's happening from that spec ed piece.
Absolutely, Nancy. So even since last week, we've already done quite a bit of review of all of the materials and already started to brainstorm and think about the integration for special education students with all exceptionalities. And that is an item that we'll definitely bring back in the fall as we're working through the timeline that's been provided.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we do have Fiona and Carmela here with us this evening. I don't know if they want to show themselves and say hello, so you can put a name and a face to our itinerants.
Hi, everyone. We're really looking forward to joining the committee, so thank you, and supporting our students and teachers. So this is great work, and it sounds very exciting, so thank you.
Yep, looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you both. And Maria, I know that you're chairing the meeting this evening. One of the outcomes of the meeting was going to be to ask for a member from Seac to be part of the committee. So I just put that out there for you just as an assistance.
Yep, I was going to do that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Glad to see 2 women being added to the committee, speaking of diversity, so that's awesome. So I don't know, I think this is the first that most Seac members are hearing about this opportunity. So I don't know if there's anyone out there that would like to put their name forward. We can also have people follow up by email to myself, Brenda, and Andrea. I would certainly be interested in joining. I don't know if there's anyone else who has that interest.
I would be interested as well in joining, Maria, from a spec ed.
Okay. Okay. So a couple more women.
To be fair, there were a lot of women on the committee. We did a lot of males tonight, but we did have a lot of female representation on the.
I did see some names at the end there, so I'm just teasing. Anyways, okay, so I will suggest maybe again, Nancy and I listened to the board meeting, so I knew this was coming, and obviously Nancy did. For some of our other members, this is maybe the first time they're hearing about this and the opportunity. So I will leave it that if anyone else is interested to put their name forward, and then I guess, I mean, you probably don't want too many, but we'll see what comes and go from there, if that works for everybody. And other than that, I'm not seeing anything. If people could type hand up into the chat box, that might be easier for me. And And this is my first meeting that I'm chairing that wasn't immediately deferred, so please bear with me if I do miss you or make any other mistakes. But other than that, I think that we're good. And thank you again, Jeff, and everybody else who came out and joined us today. We're happy to have you with us. Now, I think next on the agenda, I think, was going to be the presentation from Director Daly. So I'm not sure if he has joined us already. Is Director Daly here?
I am, and I apologize, Madam Chair, for throwing a curveball into your agenda. I do say thanks for accommodating me. And if I can, I'm going to try and share my screen, and away I'll go.
Yeah, thank you very much. No problem.
Okay, is my am I sharing my screen?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, is it full screen or can you see all 20 slides?
No, it's neither. It looks a little bit condensed, but I only see the one slide, so.
Okay.
It's just not filling up the whole screen, at least not for me.
Okay, let me just.
I mean, I think it's okay, especially if you're having trouble, but.
A little bit. Is that big enough for people to see?
I think it is. I don't know if anyone else has. Does anyone else have any concerns? I think it's fine.
Okay, sorry about that. So I wanted to give you an update tonight as to where we're at with our strategic planning committee. So I'm just going to review briefly what the process is and kind of where we're at in the process. So boards are required by the Ed Act to create a minimum 3-year strategic plan. And the idea behind the strategic plan is that it sets long-term strategic priorities and goals for the board. Ultimately, we want to promote student achievement and well-being, ensure that we have effective stewardship of our board resources, and support and to develop effective and appropriate education programs for our students. So many of you would know that we're wrapping up our current multi-year strategic plan. So our last plan was a 5-year plan, began in 2016, and would have ended at the end of this school year. We're going to extend it a little bit into next school year because of some adjusted timelines. Kind of our overarching strategic goals are focused around achieving, believing, belonging, and good foundational elements to support those 3 key areas. And again, hopefully after 5 years, people are familiar with some of those terms. In terms of the actual process, it's a lengthy one, or can be a lengthy one, and we've been delayed a little bit in our process this time around, really because of kind of the current situation that we're in. But anyway, it's really a 4-stage process. The first one is gathering elements, getting together and getting organized. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're just finishing up phase 1. The second phase is one where we start to gather information so that we can start to plan and make decisions. The third phase, actually setting strategic priorities and goals and developing the actual plan. And then once the plan is approved, it's the implementation and monitoring of the plan. So it is kind of sequential, one step building on another. So we're just wrapping up that first step in the ladder, and that's validating our mission, vision, and values, and then determining whether or not we need some outside help to help us through the process. So we did review our mission, vision, and values at our strategic planning committee table. There was a number of suggestions that were made with regards to all three elements. We did send those out for stakeholder feedback and then eventually landed on a few changes in our visions and value statements. So the vision of the board is, essentially kind of our preferred destination. We hope that it's, somewhat inspirational or motivational. It's where we want to be, what we want to achieve, hopefully how others outside of our board view us. So we didn't really make a change to our vision. It remains that we want to provide, in a nutshell, provide exceptional Catholic education and nurturing a call to love and serve in our students. In terms of our values, that's really what's important to us as a board and what are our fundamental beliefs. And while there were some minor changes here, the Strat Plan Committee and then the board did validate essentially our current values. So we value our faith, we value the whole child, we value excellence in learning, we value the relationships and partnerships that we can build, and we value the importance of contributing to our communities. So that was the first stage of phase one. At our last strategic plan committee meeting, we did consider whether or not we wanted to use an external consultant or a facilitator. Oftentimes boards do use a consultant or some outside help at varying points of the process for a couple of reasons. Sometimes a different voice or an outside voice can provide a different perspective, can provide an objective opinion as opposed, in terms of the strengths and areas of concern for the board. They can, if it's somebody who this is their profession, they may be able to bring together a large group of people and lots of different types of data and to kind of point people in a particular direction. And by that, I mean letting them come to some consensus. So we did decide, the Strategic Planning Committee did recommend to the board that we enter into kind of a competitive bid process to hire an external consultant. So that's the process that we're in now, so that a request for proposals will go out, and then we'll vet those and eventually land on a consultant to work with us. Because of some adjusted timelines, as I said, we'll operate under our current strategic plan until we complete our next one, and the modified timelines hopefully will bring us to a completed multi-year strategic plan by the early by February of next year. So in the next phase, we'll hire our external facilitator. We'll start to gather all kinds of different types of data, and that'll help us kind of see where there's patterns, see where there might be outliers, identify where there might be needs, identify areas that we're doing well in that we can improve on. So that's kind of where we'll be in that next step. So we do an external scan of existing data, and it could be things like the feedback that we get on our strat plan, the school climate survey that we just wrapped up, different types of surveys that we've conducted over the past year, if we had EQAO data this year, EQAO data, report card data, census data from the federal government, data that we share with Our Kids Network in Halton. We bring all of that together, try and look for themes and maybe some things that are a bit of outliers, and then start to look at and identify tentative strategic priorities. The big part, and where we'll come back to Seac in the fall, is in then the consultation process. So once we've kind of done that initial dig into our data, then we'll start to identify who our key stakeholders are, how we want to engage them in the consultation process, conduct that consultation, and then bring all of that information back to the committee to analyze those findings. So this phase 2 stage is really, it's the one that's probably going to take us the most amount of time. We're hopeful that we can start our consultation process in the fall and then work through the winter on actually setting our priorities, our goals, and then an operational plan to carry them out. So I know that was a little bit rapid fire. I'm happy to answer any questions or go over any of the elements where we're at now. Certainly we'll be back to Seac in a more formal way in the consultation process in the fall, as well as other groups like CPIC and various stakeholders. What the consultation will look like, we'll determine that hopefully over the course of the summer and then into the early fall as well. So happy to answer any questions or take any feedback at this point.
Thank you very much, Director Daly. I don't see anybody just yet. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Just looking at the chat box. I guess, so February is now the target timeline, if I'm seeing from that schedule.
Yeah.
So technically our current plan is ending. Is there any implications to that, or we just continue to operate, I guess, under the old plan?
Yeah, I think obviously the implications are if there's a shift in what our priorities are, we're kind of in a bit of a holding pattern. I think if you think about kind of our plan as it is right now and our overall priorities kind of grouped under that achieving, believing, belonging pillars, I don't think there's anything we would say that we wouldn't want to continue on. But certainly, it is, there is a bit of a time stamp to the plan. It was developed in 2016. We think about how many things have changed just in the last 6 months to a year that we want to address, and probably what we can learn from and build on. So we do want to get to it. In terms of implications for, like, from a ministry perspective, there have been a lot of boards that delayed their strat plan process because of the difficulties, really more so probably last spring, because we weren't quite as used to being able to reach out to do consultations in the way we can do them now. Ideally we'll have a mix of both virtual or online consultations and face-to-face, but we'll have to see kind of what limits, if any, we have based on kind of health and safety guidelines in the fall. Certainly, I think there's different ways we can reach out to people, but I think getting people, whether it's big groups or small groups, around a table face-to-face is a good way to get feedback as well as doing it this way.
Yeah, I think we're forgetting how to operate face-to-face. So yeah. we went out for dinner on Friday night, and I forgot even all how that works, it seems. Anyway, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions. I think I can speak for the committee when I say we look forward to being part of that consultation in the fall. We'll be ready for it. So thank you very much. And I think with that, yeah.
And I'm going to, if I could, politely step out of the meeting because we are in bargaining today and we're still in bargaining. So if I can jump back in, I will. And I do apologize. I don't like to miss Seac meetings. This might be the first one I've missed partially in 3 years. It's really good learning for me, and it is a good opportunity to hear Seac voice, but I've got a little bit of competing priorities today, so I apologize for that.
We will make sure that Superintendent Ballo takes all the tough questions back to you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And with that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Ballo to share with us the special education video.
Thank you, Maria, through you. So it is our last meeting of Seac, and with it being the last meeting of the school year, we'd like to offer our gratitude to all of our Seac members, including our trustees, for their support of special education and for the partnership. It's been a great first year in this portfolio, and it's been a lot of learning for all of us, and we've certainly appreciated Seac. I'd also like to thank Pat and our special education staff. And with that said, I would like to share a video that our staff has put together to try and capture this year for all of us. And I'm going to ask Andrea to pull the video up for us.
thank you so much. That was an amazing video. Always it gives me a bit of goosebumps. Another year under our belt. So I just tried to see. We've got some nice comments in the chat box. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments that they would like to share. Lots of great comments in the chat box. I don't see anyone putting their hand up. So, yeah, very touching, beautiful, so cool. Can't read that one. Nancy, I don't know what you're saying there. Lovely, wow, well done, yes. Agree with all of that. Oh, Rhonda, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just feel that I want to acknowledge that it has been such a overwhelmingly challenging year, and that video, the way it was done, just acknowledged everybody, and you didn't miss anything or anyone, and I thought it was super impressive. I think the best I've ever seen, and congratulations for that.
Thank you, Rhonda, and thank you to everybody on Seac and to the staff. I think it does really speak to how in Spec Ed it takes a team, and we've got a wonderful team of leaders and educators, and our kids have met with success, and there was lots of happiness and lots of acknowledgement from many groups that we were able to support this year. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing that with us this evening. So I guess if there's, I don't think there's, wait, does anyone have their hand up? No, I think Rhonda, your hand is still showing us up, but I think you already spoke.
I'm gonna lower it now, sorry. Yeah.
No problem. Sorry, I'm just trying to, don't want to miss anybody. Okay, so with that, I think the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. So hopefully everybody had a chance to read them. They went out on Thursday, I believe. Can I have a mover to approve the minutes, please?
I can move, Maria.
Oh,
it's Nancy.
Nancy, yep. Okay, thank you, Nancy. And can I have a seconder?
Sure, I like my name in print. It's Paul.
Thanks, Paul. I was going to say it's a low commitment proposition, but your name will go down in history. Okay, so anybody opposed to the approval of the minutes? Seeing no opposition, the minutes carry. Next item is declaration of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest to declare? So I don't see anything there. The next item is the business arising from previous meetings. So we have a couple of items on there that have just kind of ongoing. And I'd like to take a look at the schedule for next year, maybe between now and September. We also had come up with some goals earlier in the year, and I'm not sure where we're at with all of those. So I think maybe for September might be a good opportunity to kind of revisit all of those things and see how we want to move forward into next year. So I'll take that offline with the chair and staff. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments or anything to share on that. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. There's no board policies for us to review at this time. So the next item is the accessibility plan, which I'm just realizing that has the chair's name beside it. So, okay, so the link to the plan was in the meeting package. It's reviewed and updated on an annual basis by the committee. I don't know if does anyone have any questions or comments on the plan. So if members would like to submit feedback to the plan, we could do that by email, and the suggestions will be brought forward on behalf of Seac to the committee. There's also a letter that was received from the ministry for consultation, consultation on the Education Standards Development Committee. So I think we're going to share that after the meeting, and that gives an opportunity as well to share feedback directly to the ministry. I don't know, Superintendent Ballo, if you had anything to add on that. I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance. I was sort of last minute that I was told that I would be chairing, so I did not have a chance to get too familiar with that item.
No, you have it there, Maria. We are going to share the document in full. We received it late Friday, so we'll share it with Seac, and you'll have the opportunity to provide any feedback that you'd like. It'll go to all members.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if anyone has anything at the moment. I'm not seeing a very quiet group tonight. So with that being said, I think everyone's tired and ready for summer vacation. With that being said, the next item is the superintendent's report. So Superintendent Ballo, I will turn it over to you again.
Okay, thank you. So with respect to professional development, we always give an update regarding any of the PD that's taken place. And just keeping in mind, our last meeting was May 31st, so it's a little unusual to have a meeting 2 weeks right after. But since that time, we did meet with all of our administrators, and we had a presentation that was provided by some of our chiefs on FASD, and it was very well received, and it was nice to be able to present that to our admin and give them some updates in that area. We had our final family of schools meeting, and it took place with all of the elementary certs at the beginning of June. We celebrated our award winners at that last meeting, and we were able to recognize Deborah from St. Michael's, who received the Suzanne Rossini Award for closing the achievement gap, and Logan from Our Lady of Victory, who received the Gary Mahoney Award for Most Improved Behavior. We were also brought together to celebrate 2 certs who are retiring, and we had a presentation on the new mental health and well-being multidisciplinary team that we will be implementing in the fall. We had our last program services meeting, so we come together in the spirit of collaboration with curriculum and student success, and we had that meeting on the most recent PA day. Our psychology staff, they attended the College of Psychologists of Ontario ethics webinar last week. And with respect to psychology staff, we do have the update, as we always bring in June, with regards to the psych assessment wait time. At this time, our wait times are approximately 8 months. Meaning that the next referrals will be seen are from October of 2020. And in some areas, it is a 7-month wait. At the last Seac meeting in May, I did share with Seac that we have the opportunity this summer to offer some summer psych ed assessments. So that definitely will help with our wait list as well. I do want to bring to Seac some preliminary information at this point. There is a new initiative from Ontario Autism, and it's the Ontario Autism Program. It's a needs-based funding and services for children with a diagnosis of autism. It is a new pilot program, and it's an entry to school program. So what we do know at this time is that the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services and the Ministry of Education are partnering to deliver the OAP, which is our new acronym, Ontario Autism Program, Entry to School Program. The Entry to School Program is delivered by successful community service provider who have to go through an application process. They will deliver the 6-month group-based skill building program for young children ages 3 through 5 who are enrolled in the OAP, who are entering school for the first time, either kindergarten or grade 1. The group program will be delivered by community service providers and will be focused on preparing young children to enter school. The intent is for children to participate in the group program in the 6 months immediately prior to their school start date. As children participate in the group program, Entry to School program staff will work with local school boards to support and participate in school-based transition planning for these children. Finally, during the first 6 months after children start school, and the Entry to School program staff will be available to provide consultation support to families and/or educators upon request to support a successful transition to school. So at this point, we've had 2 community agencies in partnership with additional agencies reach out with their intent to put in an application to deliver the Entry to School program, and they are seeking a letter of support. We've met with one of the groups and we are debriefing as a team to make a final determination around supporting their application for the Entry to School program. We have yet to set a date to meet with the second agency. This is very recent and current. Applications from the community agencies are due by June 25th, and they have that information. And successful applicants will be notified in the fall, and collaborative work will begin with the school boards at that time to welcome students through this new process in March of 22 for entry into school of September 22 for our students who will be new to our schools. I know that's a lot of information, but I did want to provide a bit of an overview and then provide an update as we move along in this process. As I mentioned, the applications are just due June 25th, so there'll be more information to follow. With respect to student engagement, we did have an opportunity for our gifted classes over the course of the last several months. Our gifted classes have been participating in a program offered by Canada Learning Code called a hackathon. In this program, students were challenged to design a technical solution to a social issue of their choice, and the learning objectives during the hackathon included collaboration in small groups, framing a social problem that they would like to address, designing a tech solution to their framed problem using human-centered design thinking principles, and conducting user interviews to determine if their solution meets the needs. Sounds like a very interesting program, and the students were highly engaged. I have an update with respect to the de-streamed math. As I mentioned at our May meeting, as updates do become available, I will be bringing them to Seac. The curriculum was released by the ministry last Wednesday. The technical briefing is taking place this week with the ministry and board staff, specifically in our curriculum department, and we look forward to unpacking the information that is received over the course of the next week. Training specific to the document will be provided to teachers, including special education teachers. Staff will be coming together to do some writing over the summer, and the September 2nd PA Day has been designated for math professional development with a focus on an introduction to the new curriculum and fundamental math concepts and skills. And both Jody and Karen McCarthy are part of this committee in this work. With regards to June and September planning, in June, you would have received, or many parents have received, the email communication outlining the protocol to finish our school year. It does outline the protocol for retrieving personal belongings, and it also indicates that special education students who are currently receiving instruction in person will continue to do so until the last day of school, which is June 29th at the elementary level and 28th at secondary. And with regards to September planning, we have a few surveys that have gone out to families to gather some information from them. With our secondary students, a secondary survey was sent to secondary parents last week. And it went to all parents who had students who would be in a life skills class in September. So not only the existing, but the students who are currently in grade 8 who are going into a life skills class. That survey closes on June 18th, which is this Friday, but we have had a very significant response to date. It's been excellent. Our secondary update, based on the information that we have received, which is the vast majority of the responses, is that 96% of those families who have replied are opting for in-person. So that leaves us with less than 5 students who are interested in the virtual option. And it's really helpful information for us to be able to share with our secondary school departments so that they can develop their plans for September. With respect to elementary, that survey also went out and it closed last Friday. Parents and guardians have been asked to confirm their intention for September, and I do believe that Director Daly will be providing some updates tomorrow night as well at our board meeting. I can share with Seac that we received the information today with all the names, and we've had the opportunity to go through some of the information. And we do have a number of students with IEPs who will be opting for virtual school in September. And at this point, based on the preliminary data, it appears that we will be able to offer placement 1 through 3. However, we cannot commit to placement 4 option for any of our specialized classes. Given the feedback and the very high interest from parents to return to their home school, we have less than 5 students per exceptionality who have opted for the virtual option. So at this point, our next step is to, again, review the information that we have and to consult with families and school teams to determine our next steps and to look at what those options will be. At this point, the options would include a virtual placement 3 or being in school. And I think it will really depend on the family and the student and the school team. So we are going to treat each of those cases on a case by case and work towards a plan. On a positive note, we have retained the 2 teachers who taught the virtual gifted classes this year and the STC class, and they will be able to support the programming and placement 3 students who they already know very well. So we really worked to try to provide that continuity, and at this point, that is the situation with our staffing. Just a brief update on the secondary model. I know that there have been some questions regarding what the model is going to look like. I don't have the information as to what the model will look like, but the update that I can provide is that there'll be more information coming at the board meeting, and following the board meeting, there will be a feedback form that will be coming. It will be going out to Seac and CPIC via email, likely on Wednesday, so please look for that email communication. I do know that the models are being presented to Halton Region Public Health, and there's definitely the intent to share the models, the proposed models, with Seac and CPIC. So as I said, look for your email on Wednesday of this week. And I think that's it for me. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Quite a full report considering we only just met 2 weeks ago.
I know.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? I'm not seeing any hands up. I had a couple of questions, so maybe I'll start. Sure. And then if anyone else has questions, I will keep my eye on the chat. This isn't really Seac related, but you mentioned that the proposed models were going to be shared with CPIC and Seac, which is great. Do you know if they'll be shared with school councils as well, like the secondary school councils?
I'm not certain, Maria, so I don't really want to speak to that. But it's I can relay that the question was asked.
There's your question for Director Daly.
Sure.
It's not too tough, but
I think if one thing CPIC was definitely confirmed, but I can find out about school councils individually.
Yeah, I mean, I know that CPIC sort of represents the school councils, but they don't necessarily communicate regularly with them. So I think that would be a good suggestion. You also mentioned the Gary Mahoney and Suzanne Recedi awards, and I've heard about those over the years, and I know they're named after previous superintendents, but I don't know too much about them and how the winners are determined. And I think we're doing pretty good for time, so I thought maybe this would be an opportunity for us, not to put you on the spot, but maybe for us as Seac to learn a little bit more about those awards.
Sure, Maria, and I've got Jody on, so I can call her up because I know that she's been part of that process. And as you mentioned, Suzanne and Gary, I was privileged to work with both of them over my career, are retired superintendents. Here's Jody.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Haven't seen you yet tonight. So yes, we have the Suzanne Rossini Award, and that's for closing the achievement gap. And we have the Gary Mahoney Award, which is most improved behavior. And those awards are put forward by our, the candidates for those awards are put forward by our consultants, actually. And they put forward possible students that might meet that criteria based on, and we look at each award individually and consider the students that are put forward and who would be appropriate for those awards. And then we make a decision as a consultant and coordinator together and then propose that to the school to see who would be a good candidate for those awards. It's actually a really nice time, and it's one of our most favorite meetings, I have to say, that we present them at the FOSS, and we invite families and the schools to attend the presentations, and the students also have an opportunity to speak. So it's a really lovely time. And we said last meeting that, you know, we should do this every month at our FOSS because it's really an opportunity to celebrate the success of our students. And we always look forward to those awards.
Thank you very much. Love to hear all those good news stories.
Yeah, they really are. Amazing.
Yeah. So I did have one other question for Superintendent Ballo. I guess this is probably the best time to ask it. But we had talked about, at our last meeting, we had the de-streaming presentation. And I know you gave us some updates tonight. But we also talked about Seac representation on the de-streaming committee or somehow in that de-streaming process. And I honestly can't remember how it was exactly left. We haven't heard anything since. We've had a lot of interest tonight in having Seac represented on the STEM committee, which is great. I think the de-streaming process is equally as important. And I do know that the ministry references Seac as, you know, not a requirement, but I guess a suggestion to be involved in that process. So I'm just wondering where that sits and when can we sort of expect to be part of that process as well?
Yes, thanks, Maria. I definitely can bring that forward as well in the composition of the committee as it's being further formulated. That is a committee that Superintendent Crowell was on earlier does chair, and I can bring that to his attention. I do know that, as you mentioned, it's outlined as one of the stakeholders for consideration. And in addition to the presentation that was presented, I do hear that there is an interest. So I'm happy to bring that to him.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you very much. And if we could just have that kind of reflected in the minutes and maybe the business arising, so we don't forget, and we can follow up if we don't hear anything before September. So I don't see any hands up again. So with that, I will turn it over to Trustee Duarte for the trustee report. I think you're muted, Trustee Duarte.
I realized that I was muted. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've got a brief update since the last meeting was held just 2 weeks back, May 31st. We have had one board meeting and one special board meeting. I'm pretty much going to repeat what you heard from Director Daly and Superintendent Crowell and Superintendent Ballo, but I'll do my job by repeating that. So at the June 1st regular meeting, there were 2 presentations. One was on the 2021 education development charges, bylaw amendment, as well as science, technology, engineering and math, STEM, which you heard about. There were also delegations on the pre-AP and pre-IB math programs, where changes were planned to be made due to de-streaming of the grade 9 math curriculum. After discussions, the board passed a resolution that any future proposed changes to the AP and IB program, whether initiated by the ministry or otherwise, would be brought to the Board of Trustees for approval in advance of, as well as following community consultation. So that was the outcome of the response to the delegation. At the June 3rd special board meeting, the 2021 education development charges bylaw amendment was passed, along with the approval to proceed with phase 2 of the multi-year strategic planning process, which you heard about in detail, as well as the results of the STEM steering committee. Again, we heard a lot about that. So we just heard the presentation on the multi-year strategic plan by Director Daly, and we have now concluded phase 1 of that process, with trustees approving the mission, vision, and values for HCDSB for the next 4 years. The phase 2 data collection is in process, as we heard again. We hope to complete the 4 phases of the multi-year strategic plan early next year. And for that to be successful, we really need everybody to participate. So Seac and CIPIC and all the school councils, as well as our parents, parent communities, as staff, everybody needs to support that. A little bit more about STEM, and I'm always very excited when I talk about this. So the original motion was a year back, and we heard a lot, was to increase participation and co-curricular and extracurricular activities in elementary as well as secondary. We do have a lot of stuff happening in secondary right now, but not much really happening in elementary. So the committee worked together as a whole for the whole year to come up with this report with concrete plans and the roadmap. You saw the roadmap some time back to grow STEM, and now it's STEAM in elementary as well as secondary schools in the system. So you heard that it's tied to the curriculum. It's now tied to the curriculum and linked to the Ontario Catholic School graduate expectations. We now have a detailed roadmap and plans for resources, dedicated staff, and physical spaces in our schools. So this is now an excellent opportunity for our school councils, parents, our alumni students to be involved in the deployment process at our schools, be it through camps, clubs, parent evenings, sharing with Seac and CPIC and and the gathering as a whole. And I hope you could help to disseminate this information to your groups. This initiative also brings opportunity for all our girl students, while also providing equitable and accessible opportunities to each and every student in our system. And my hope is that it will only keep on growing. As you just heard now, it would be great to have someone from Seac work together with the STEM committee, and we talked about that earlier, and your contribution will be invaluable. A couple of things which are upcoming. So trustees are currently involved with school graduation ceremony preparations for this week and last week, and it will be done virtually. Trustees will also be having meetings in June and July to discuss, debate, and approve the budget. Consultant will be hired to assist with some areas of the multi-year strategic planning, phase 2. That's data collection, and this will happen in August, so no holidays for trustees. Finally, this being the end of the year meeting, I would like to thank each and every Seac member and staff involved for your dedication and contribution to Seac and our board. So have a great summer and a safe summer with your families. I'll be happy to take any questions if there are. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I'm not seeing any hands up at the moment. I do have something I'd like to kind of bring forward and share with trustees. I do listen to a lot of the board meetings, and definitely there's been more profile of Seac at the meetings lately. And as you know, it came up about Seac being part of the STEM committee, which is great. But we also were brought up in a couple of other policy discussions that kind of were surprising to me, because I don't think they came from requests from Seac, and we haven't been asked about these items. So it was the correspondence policy and it was the delegation policy. And with respect to the correspondence policy, whether we should have a section on our agenda for correspondence, and I think it was decided that that shouldn't be added because it would take up too much time. But then at the next policy committee, we had there was discussion about delegations coming to Seac, which I thought was a bit unusual because delegations would take more time than correspondence. And I don't really know how that would work, because Seac we don't really make decisions, right? We can just forward advice onto the board, which we don't even really do that. And even sometimes as a Seac member, our concerns aren't necessarily being brought forward to the board. So I'm just trying to understand how this would work. So parents would come and delegate to us, and then would we be deliberating and making a recommendation to the board? When we're not even doing that.
Maria, I can answer that. I can answer that as chair of policy.
Well, okay, just maybe
so
can I just?
It's not actually passed though,
Sorry,
Maria.
Nancy. Can I just finish, and then I saw that you had your hand up, but I was just speaking.
No, I know, but you're asking questions about a policy that hasn't been passed. It's only in conversation.
Right, and so I'm kind of taking the opportunity to give some feedback before it does get passed. So I'm almost finished. I just having trouble seeing how this would work. I think it would add time to our agenda, and I'd like to see Seac itself, putting forth recommendations to the board first before we have delegations come directly to us. So that's just some feedback there. And Nancy, you could go ahead now.
I was just going to simply say it wasn't just for Seac, it was for all committees. It was about making delegations available to all, and there was a lot of discussion around it and a lot of things that needed to be worked out. But it was to open the conversation
and that's why it's been put onto the following agenda for more work to be done on it. So one thing we always try to do is anytime it impacts any of the other committees, we try to ensure that we speak to those committees that it impacts. So before any final decision would be made, we would obviously ask for feedback from Seac, CPIC, anything that would be affected by that policy. So I appreciate, I appreciate the comments and the suggestions, but before anything like that happens, I can guarantee that it'll come here first.
Well, thank you for that. I guess my comment would be, I think that seems a little backwards, because I think our feedback should be happening before the discussions and before sort of there's a draft policy to be approved. That would be my feedback that I would like to share. And I don't know if anyone else has any comments. I don't know if Marvin wanted to say something. I don't.
Yeah, I'll just leave it at that, because I think Trustee Guzzo spoke to that. But again, it's still in discussion process right now. There's a lot more thought that needs to go into that that particular document, and yeah, I'm sure it'll come back. But I'll just leave it at that.
Diane, I believe you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Maria. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. With regard to this, it's my understanding that before decisions are made at the board table, there's usually a staff report and considerable discussion over that. I think I'm perhaps gone off again.
We were hearing you, and we heard you say you went off, and then you went off. So I don't know, Diane, if you can.
Oh, I'm having trouble with this.
Oh, I can hear you.
Sorry?
I was just going to say we can hear you again, so please go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Basically, I'll repeat that before decisions are made at the board table, it's my understanding that usually there's at least a staff report and considerable discussion among trustees. So if we were to start making recommendations based on petitions or delegations or anything else, would we have that particular kind of information that is given to the Board of Trustees, and is that our place insofar as we are charged with the recommendation of services and programs for students who are receiving special ed services? That's it, Maria. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. And I don't know, I'm not sure if you understood what this particular item is about, but I'm not aware of any staff report, but it's specifically talking about possibly adding something to the Seac agenda that Seac would then have on their agenda to deal with in our meeting. So I guess I'm just saying, I think that we should be part of, like, we should be like, do we even want that? Definitely, I think that's something that we should have a say in. And I would say before the conversation goes too far, it should be very much in the beginning. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if anyone else has anything that they would like to pass along. And I'm not seeing any hands up. So the next item is Seac discussion and questions. So does anyone have anything that they would like to share under the Seac discussion? So I'm not seeing any hands up again. So I did have a couple of questions. One was with respect to the budget process. So I know the board is behind in that as well, and I'm sure that's has to do with the ministry maybe not releasing the information yet or releasing it late. But I'm just trying to understand our process here, because I know individually provided some ideas to be considered for the budget. They were submitted as a kind of a list, but even as a group, we didn't sort of discuss or prioritize the different items. So I'm just trying to understand kind of next steps, because that's not a very robust, I guess, consultation for us as a group. So I'm just wondering about that. If I don't know, Superintendent Ballo, if you have anything to share there.
I can. When the information was brought, and I'm kind of going back a few meetings now, when the information was brought, we did share all of the information with Seac, and we did have a conversation about the items that people had expressed interest in. We also had the budget presentation take place at Seac, so I think that all the information that we had, we did share. With respect to the process itself, we cross-referenced because after that point, we did get the funding from the ministry and it came in May. So we were able to cross-reference some of the items that we could use the ministry funding for against the list. And we definitely took a look at the items. I don't know that I would say we prioritized them necessarily, but we did do a bit of a check and balance based on the conversations we've had here at Seac regarding feedback for what some of those areas of interest are. The budget process, I do know that we are having a board meeting, I believe on Wednesday, and I haven't been able to look at my phone necessarily, but I do think that there is an agenda that's come out for our meeting on Wednesday, which will focus on budget. And in that
it just came out, Stephanie. Sorry,
yeah, I thought
it just came out. It's been posted.
Thanks, Nancy. So the agenda did just get posted for the meeting on Wednesday night, and the focus of the meeting on Wednesday is budget. And you'll see in that communication some of the items that we were able to put forward with feedback from Seac and in looking at the needs with our staff as well.
Okay, so you know what, now that I'm thinking, I do remember a bit of a conversation, but I don't think we sort of prioritized because obviously the money's never unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps that could be shared then with Seac, that part of the presentation that maybe might indicate which of our requests will be funded in the budget or something.
Well, I'd say, Maria, it's in the board agenda for Wednesday evening. It's pretty itemized, and it indicates items that pertain specifically to special education. And when we did our consultation with Seac, I believe we sent out a form. And we asked for Seac members to give suggestions. We did do that. We asked for Seac to give suggestions specific to budget initiatives for next year. So we did take that information as part of the process.
Okay, and I believe everybody on Seac receives the notice of the meetings, right? So they can go and look at the board report if they're interested in that. I believe.
Board meeting package is posted on the public website.
Right, and I think as Seac members, we get an email when it's posted with the link so that we know. Yes, I know it's on the board website. I was just wondering if Seac members get it, but I believe they do. Diane, I see your hand up, but I don't know if that's just from before. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I'm sorry.
No problem. I don't know if anyone else has any discussion items. I did have one other question if no one else does. At our last, actually I have two questions I just remembered. I was looking at the special education plan and I think we're due to receive an update on PsyCAD wait lists. I think it specifically said June. So I don't remember if that was in your superintendent's report.
Yeah, I gave it this evening.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. It's an 8-month wait at this time.
Okay, thank you. So the other thing was when we looked at the exceptionalities at the last meeting, there was an observation about the number of behavioral identifications and that those were increasing, and wondering if there was maybe something behind that, maybe that other issues are manifesting in behavior. And I'm just wondering if staff will be looking into that at all, or what sort of where that feedback has gone.
I can give a brief response, and then Jody's on. I know she answered those questions when they were asked at our last meeting, so feel free, Jody, if you'd like to contribute. But I would say that the questions are noted, and we always review and monitor any data with respect to exceptionalities, and if there's any further work or monitoring to be needed, it certainly does happen at our leadership table amongst our consultants as well when we're reviewing that information. And Jody, I see you're on there.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just add, as you said that, Stephanie, there, I think part of our monitoring process is to look at, as you mentioned, all exceptionalities to see where our work can be developed, whether it be PD or looking at those specific exceptionalities and what they might need to be supported in our schools and how we can help support our certs to do that. So we will definitely monitor that into the new year as well.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you. And I guess specifically the feedback there, though, was, you know, whether there's something else that's causing the behavior, and it's not just a simple behavior identification. Okay, so does anyone else have any questions or comments? I'm not seeing, I think, Diane, I still see your hand, but I think that's from before. If not, please interrupt me. So we need a resolution for absentees, and I believe we heard from Rick and Brenda. I did see Helena send in a late one, and Samantha Sweet as well did advise me that she wasn't going to be here. So can I have someone move a resolution to excuse our absentees? It's a low commitment proposition.
I can move, Maria. It's Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. A seconder? I guess I can second, right? Can I second as chair? Oh.
It's Paul.
Okay, I think Tracy beat you to it. Can we put Tracy's name down for this one?
Please.
Nice to have some
You can
variety.
also take my you can also take my name down as well. I always wait to hear if anybody else comes forward first.
I know, Nancy. Okay, so we'll have Paul move and Tracy second. Thank you. And any objections to that? Okay, so I can never remember what goes first, the closing prayer or the motion to adjourn. I guess I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
You get to choose.
Yippee! Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I move to adjourn, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Can I have a seconder?
I will do that.
Thank you, Marvin. Okay, so no objections, I hope. Okay, so Andrea, could you please put the closing prayer up on the screen? Thank you so much. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, O God of all creation. Each day you spread before us the rich and wonderful diversity of the human family created in the divine splendor of your love. Fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another. Oh. Sorry, I don't have it memorized. Okay, fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another with the same tender care with which you brought us to creation. Each one of us is but one small part of the glory that is you. As we serve the students and families of the Halton Catholic District School Board on the Special Education Advisory Committee, fill us with your grace, guide us with your wisdom, and give us the strength and courage to do your work, so that it may always be said of our every act, God saw that it was good. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful summer, and I guess we'll see you in September.
It's a great song.
Have a great summer, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for cheering.
Dan,
no problem.
Is now exiting. Thank you.
you.